The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Power Hour edition. We've got 60 minutes to recap one of the craziest matches that any of us have seen. 8-2 Bayern Munich over Barcelona. What's this mean for Bayern? What's this mean for Barca? What's this mean for European football? All of that kind of wrapped into one 90-minute match. Craziness. We'll get into that. We've got some updates on the MLS transfer window as well. Some activity, some rumored activity, some things to be watching for. We've got Atlanta United 2 tonight on the watch-along here on Twitch, twitch.tv/soccerdown here for those of you who listen on the audio-only edition. The watch-along will be only on Twitch. You'll be watching the game on ESPN+. We'll be watching the game on ESPN+. We'll be sitting around talking about the game that you're watching on ESPN+. Atlanta and Charleston this evening. John, what'd you think about 8-2 yesterday?
Oh, man. It's the GIF that pops up every time then you do a Rocky search, just the movie Rocky, and there's that GIF of Duke from Rocky 4 where he sees Drago pounding Apollo Creed, and Duke is yelling at the top of his lungs, "Throw the damn towel." Mm-hmm. That's what was going into my head. It got painful. It was just, somebody put a stop to it, and the only thing that stopped it was the clock. It was one of the most jaw-dropping things that I have seen in a long time, and it was an absolute stunner by the time we were done. It could have been worse.
Yeah, it definitely could have been worse. Ragamuffin said, "This is the Barca wake, right? We're in the right place, right?" Yeah, and I feel bad for Barcelona fans. I know Fourcard is a big Barca fan. There's quite a few others who listen. I've always had a ton of respect for what Barcelona has been, and I think "been" is the key word. They haven't been that in a while. It's not going to be easy. I mean, Badgermon's already asking how has Setien not been fired already. We have a little bit of an update on that. There's a bit of a process when you're dealing with a club like Barcelona that is a membership-driven club. This is what complicates everything at the moment. So updates from Football España, which is a great resource if you're following La Liga, Spanish football, in English. It sounds like he will be sacked on Monday. The president, Josep Bartomeu, has called for an extraordinary board meeting outside of a normally scheduled board meeting. That's why it's extraordinary, not just because they lost 8-2. Quique Setien is set to be sacked there. Now, according to other reports in Spain, it'll be more than just Setien's future that's discussed. Bartomeu could be calling for early presidential elections. That has come up quite a bit. His term is up next year. He will not be eligible to stand again for the position. Somebody else has to be elected president. Gwen wants him to walk away now. Gwen wants Setien to walk away now. Gwen was very disgusted by the game yesterday. Big Barcelona fan. We have all kinds of friction because I wear the Real Madrid jersey and she gets mad. Bartomeu has been there since 2014. Now, here's a couple things that have popped up. Football España is also reporting, and this is coming from Diario Sport, Barcelona is considering their former striker Thierry Henry as a replacement for Quique Setien, which is craziness. Max Allegri, also on the short list. Mauricio Pochettino, also on the short list. According to Diario Sport, Xavi is not on the short list. He has no interest in taking over the job right now. It's reported that Barcelona will initiate contacts with representatives of Henry, Pochettino, Allegri, and Ronald Koeman this weekend as they look to refine their shortlist. This is not just a, man, that was a bad day. Man, this team's got some work to do. They got to upgrade the defense. It's not that. This is what has happened at Barcelona before. This is what has been obvious for a while. Quique Setien's going to lose his job. It's not his fault. He walked into something that nobody's fixing it. Ernesto Valverde, he lost his job back in January. I don't know if it was necessarily his fault. When you have made three of the biggest signings in history, history of the game. You've made 3 of them, 3 of like the top 20 or so. And they're involved in the match, except all of them start on the bench, and one of them isn't even on your bench. That's a problem. And that's a big part of why Barcelona is where Barcelona is. And none of those signings were defensive players or anything in the midfield in terms of a holding position either. So that's another reason. It's not going to get better overnight. You heard Gerard Piqué's comments, and that's the comments that Piqué made are kind of unique to a club like Barcelona, where a guy like Piqué did spend some time at Manchester United, but he is Barca through and through. He feels the club, he understands the club, it's in his blood. To say, look, this club needs changes, and if I need to go, I'll go. You're not going to hear that at many other places. You're not going to hear that at a Real Madrid, for example. You're not going to hear that at a Chelsea. You're not going to hear that at a Juventus. Barcelona has a feeling about it that has been lost for a while. The only remnants of it have been your Piqués and Busquets and Messi. And those guys are all old. I mean, it's just real. The average age of the lineup last night, 29 years and 329 days. Almost 30 years old. It's the oldest Barcelona has ever fielded for a Champions League match. It showed. Their defense has been bad for a while. I mean, it feels like since maybe the 2015 Champions League win, nothing's changed. It's just gotten worse. You had 6 players that were 30 years old or older. You start to open up the game like Bayern did. And Bayern took a risk early. Go back and look at the beginning of that match. Bayern played very high line. Bayern gave up opportunities. Bayern also took a calculated risk. They said, look, if we play like this, if we play at this pace and we push the game this way, Barca's going to have opportunities and they could score goals. But they can't keep up. And they tried this before. Go back to the Pep Guardiola days at Bayern against Barcelona. And they kind of took this same game plan in some ways. And it didn't work because Barcelona was better. That was a long time ago, too. And it's a lot of the same Barcelona that can't play in that way 5, 6, 7 years later. It's just impossible. So Bayern took risks, but they were calculated. And they just opened Barcelona up. And they broke them. I mean, you could see by the end it was a broken team. That's the biggest element here is beyond the quality, beyond the age, beyond those elements of what Barcelona has turned into, they're broken emotionally at this point. You can't salvage it with what you have right now. It's impossible. You've got to make drastic changes. And Barcelona is going to have to accept that will take them out of the La Liga title race for a minute. There's just no way around it. You're not going to be able to stay in that conversation and do what you need to do to become the world-class club that you once were, not anymore. Because Barcelona's got more ambition than just being a team that competes for La Liga every few years. They are one of the biggest clubs in the world. The biggest clubs in the world don't lose 8-2 in a Champions League match. They don't. And that's got to change. They've got to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. There's just no way around it. They've got to get young. They've got to develop players from La Masia again, which they've completely lost. You look back in their history, and what this feels like is 2 things that I'm reminded of. The Barcelona that was broken and turned to Johan Cruyff as their manager. He was not a favorite of the leadership there. Johan Cruyff was very outspoken, had no time for politicians, any of that kind of stuff. They didn't have a choice. They turned to him. They created the dream team. They won Champions League, or they won the European Cup at that time. They became what they'd always kind of wanted to be, but hadn't really been yet. Cruyff got them there. Cruyff also put all the building blocks in for La Masia and everything that Barcelona turned into in the next wave. And they won another Champions League under Frank Rijkaard, and then it all went to the rot again. And the last year that Barcelona has not won a trophy before this one is Frank Rijkaard's last year. Pep Guardiola came in after that, and he won everything in the next year, and then he put them on a course that has now run its course. And you are needing a rebirth. But when you hear names like Allegri, it doesn't make any sense. When you hear names like, Pochettino makes some sense, but he's not a Barca guy. Henry was there for a short period of time. Koeman has been there. He understands it, but is he the guy? The guy is Xavi, in my opinion. And I will keep beating down that door because he came through the club. He went through the end of the Cruyff era. He went through the Pep era. He gets it. And he's going to take his lumps, but he's also not coming in as inexperienced as Pep Guardiola did. Guardiola had 1 year of management experience with Barcelona B. Handed him the reins, and he won everything the next year. The next year, after winning nothing, he won everything the next year. They're not positioned to do that right away. Xavi's got to oversee, or whoever it's going to be, has got to oversee a rebuild of the roster, of the structure, of the youth development, all of it. And Allegri is absolutely the worst decision they could possibly make. That's a short-term fix. That is showing how out of touch they are if he is a serious candidate right now, because that is the guy that you turn to if you feel like you got one more run in you. That team's got no more runs in them. None. And the hard part about it is to rebuild, you got to sell off some guys. There's not a lot to sell because you got to keep your young players. Messi's got another year on his contract, but, is he going to accept just going anywhere? No. Griezmann, he's 29. You might be able to get money for him. I would think you could, but I don't know what and where. Coutinho, you haven't had any luck getting rid of. Ter Stegen feels like the one that you can probably get the most return for right now. And I think you have to, even though he's a very good goalkeeper, but you just don't have a choice. And you've got to turn to these guys who are, Dembele, you paid a ton for, didn't play. Pooch, he's there. He's shown a lot. You didn't play him yesterday. You've got guys that are coming through that you just have to turn to, and you have to take your lumps. And are you going to be able to keep a Busquets or a PK as a mentor kind of figure? You're probably going to have to, because you're not going to be able to find anywhere for them to go and bring in the money. Because let's go back to this point, and I want to take some questions and comments. And this was from Maxi Angelo on Twitter. And the numbers match up. You're going to fire Setien. You have to. He can't continue after losing 8-2 in this. That means you'll be paying 3 managers because you'll still have Valverde on the hook. You'll have Setien on the hook, and you'll be hiring a new one. You have the highest wage bill in the world right now, period. Average per player is almost 10 million euro a year. Now, a lot of that is inflated by Messi, but still, they have the largest wage bill by far. The spine of the team, average age 31 and a half years old. They lost 212 million euro in match day revenue. And the wage bill, according to Maxi Angelo, and this is one number I haven't been able to confirm, 671 million euro. You lost 212 in match day revenue. I think that's including what you're looking at for the rest of the calendar year. Before La Liga restarted, remember, they needed to find money to balance the books.
Yep.
You don't have the resources to rebuild straight away. You've got to lean back on the youth that you have. You've got to take your lumps and bring in somebody who understands what it means to be Barcelona. Allegri would be a horrendous decision, and it would get worse. It might get better results-wise for a minute. It would get worse in the long run. You got to do it now. There's just no way around it. Barcelona is broken, and it's time to fix it.
And for anyone who didn't have the opportunity to watch the post-game show yesterday on CBS All Access, and it's on Twitter, so it's easily accessible. If you have 6 minutes, basically, there was analysis that was put out there in a Q&A session with Alex Scott and Guillaume Balaguer. I would watch that as also as a part of your information base as you're trying to see what's going on, because it was a tremendous analysis of the day, what he saw, and what he has been watching with Spanish football in general, because Alex brought up the question of Atletico Madrid bumped out, Real Madrid not this far, Barcelona, we saw what we saw. So it was a great analysis of not just Barcelona, but Spanish football in general. So that would be requested/required viewing from me from yesterday when it comes to what we saw yesterday in that match with Bayern and Barca.
What do we have on Twitter?
We have Nathan Pugh, who says, Barca has become a house built on sand. If the ending of this season was rough, next season could be worse on the whole. They need to hurry up and buy Eric Garcia from City. Hurt City, help Barca. Everybody wins.
They need a lot more than Eric Garcia, and I don't know where they're going to find the money for Eric Garcia right now. It ain't that simple. Since the 2015 semifinal, when Barcelona beat Bayern, Barcelona spent £875 million. What have they really gotten to show for it? Nothing. I mean, just nothing. And who's benefited the most from that money? I think Liverpool might have, actually. Yeah. The Coutinho one pretty much put them on a course to be what they are now. It's insane. I mean, it's just insane what they have done. And here's the crazy thing. This is the kicker to all of it for me, to show you how poor everything's been structured at Barcelona. If Bayern goes on to win the Champions League, Coutinho has a clause in his contract or in the transfer with Barca and Liverpool that if Coutinho won the Champions League, €5 million payment goes to Liverpool. It wasn't club specific. The clause wasn't he had to win it for Barcelona. It's just he had to win it. So he's going to be out on loan for Bayern. If they win the Champions League, Barca has to kick another €5 million to Liverpool. And they get, again, nothing out of it. That's horrible transfer dealings. That's just sloppiness in terms of the contract and the terms. And that just shows you where Barcelona is right now. They are completely and utterly broken. I mean, headlines are in Spain translated, historic humiliation. A ridiculous Barca suffered its biggest defeat in Europe. Shameful end to an era. The disaster against Bayern. I mean, it's shame. It's all of it. They're broken, and it's not going to be an easy fix. It's going to take years to fix it.
What's going on Twitter, on Twitch? The other stuff here currently on Twitter is about other topics since we're on Barca Bayern.
Just lots of different things. A lot of people wondering where Messi's going to go. Real Madrid's pretty much got a lock on the La Liga title for a little while, it seems like, because Atleti's got questions too. Atleti's got questions to the point that their president, because people have been very critical of Simeone, they've been critical of his tactics in these kinds of moments where it gets ultra defensive. Atleti's president, Enrique Cerezo, he said, Simeone is not untouchable, and many disagreed with him yesterday. He is the one who picks the team, and if you don't like it, then go buy your own club, build your own team, and choose your own 11. Okay. That's a little bit of pushback. Mm-hmm. I mean, Simeone was in trouble before, earlier this season, and got them out of it, and probably got them about to where they should have been. I don't know if they should have been further. I don't know how much you want to criticize Simeone for not getting further. The way they lost is disappointing, but should they have been a semifinalist? Probably not. On talent-wise, probably not. So, I don't know. Atleti's going to have to figure that out because they've got a big wage bill too, and I think they were number 9 in Europe out of the top 10. I think they were the 9th highest payroll, and would you say they're the 9th best team? It might be a stretch. It might be a little bit of a stretch. So, Atleti's got issues. Barca's got major issues. Real Madrid, I mean, they're not perfect, and I think some of the reason why they went out when they did was, not having Sergio Ramos for the second leg. There were little things that happened. The margins were a lot thinner there. The Champions League is a crapshoot. You have to be really, really careful in measuring how good a team is based off what happens in the Champions League, especially this year. Yeah, where it's single games, it's chaos. it doesn't define the overall quality of the club. That's defined in the league season. That's defined by the way that they play. You can't let the Champions League be every single thing. Real Madrid's fine. Atleti is probably who we thought they were. Barcelona is a paper tiger, and it's a problem, and they're not going to get any better unless they make these dramatic changes. Is Bayern the overwhelming favorite based off what happened yesterday? I'm not 100% there, but I think they have staked their claim to it. You're talking 27 games unbeaten, 19 straight wins, and devastating in the way that they play, devastating in the way that they attack. If you give them space, they will punish you. But, as we saw, Barcelona did have some chances early. Could a PSG, with their attacking talent, could they punish Bayern for playing in the way that they did early? Absolutely, they could. Manchester City, could they punish them for that? Yeah. RB Leipzig and Bayern would be a fascinating one, and RB Leipzig has closed that gap really fast. So we'll see. Bayern is in the driver's seat as the favorite right now, but you can't crown them yet.
Yeah. I have them as a favorite, not the favorite, because I would think that if anybody could challenge them, it would be Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, provided they get past Lyon in that side of the bracket. So, yeah, they're, for me, they are a favorite, not the favorite. And for the record, Manchester City's number has increased today, minus 455 against Lyon. Lyon to win is a plus 1234. Wow. Honors even after 90 minutes, a plus 620 in the aggregate.
I mean, if you got a skunky juice box, throw it on Lyon just because that's an incredible return, but I don't see it happening. I think City is an overwhelming favorite, and they should be. Shiva with a comment in the Twitch pitch. She said, not trying to compare Atlanta to Barcelona, but maybe changing up the roster at the right time is not a bad thing. That way you don't have a bunch of highly paid players that now what you have to do is figure out how to move. That's absolutely a point. You look at the way that I think good clubs do what they do. They make those decisions. It's something that's been talked about with the New England Patriots for a long time. They get rid of players a year before they have to. You move players on while they're at where they're at value, while they have value, and before they show the value's gone. Now Barcelona, you've got some players that the value's probably gone. Could you find somebody to take on a Piqué, a Busquets? I mean, Messi's a different conversation. We'll put him to the side for a second. Some of these veteran players who look like they're past it. Could you find a club that might take them on for a year? In a normal time, maybe. Maybe. Because could you, add somebody? Could you add Piqué to a very good defense and have somebody around him who can make it all work? Yeah, you could. And Piqué's not bad right now. Busquets is not bad right now. Could you get them the help around them to make them, complete a team that needs a little bit of extra help? Yeah. You see that all the time. You see a veteran player come in and fix a team. Could happen. But right now, there's not a lot of money for those things to happen because those players don't come cheap and they're on fat contracts. So it's going to be difficult. Atlanta was in a situation with the way that the contracts fell that they did have to make a lot of tough decisions. There's no way around that. I think that's been really just overly simplified in the way that this has been talked about. With a salary cap, there was no way you could keep everybody who you had to make decisions on. It was impossible. And things started to roll. Dominoes started to fall. Darlington Nagbe wanted to go. You had to make a move and get the most you could for him. You did. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez had an opportunity to make more money. And this is according to Carlos Bocanegra. His agent said if there's an opportunity on the table for him to make more money, he'd be interested. That came. Julian Gressel, you couldn't come to terms on a new deal. You couldn't just pay him whatever he wanted. You couldn't do that and make everything work. So you went out and you reloaded. Now the jury's out. Absolutely, because when you do that, you have to make the moves right. You have to bring in the right people. That's a fact. You're 5 games into the season. It's a little early to be making those writing everything off. Everything's a bust. Everybody's a bust. It's a whole year. And you went out and you got Jurgen Damm on a free. You went out and you got Kubo Torres on a free. I mean, they're putting in the work. We'll see if it all comes together. But the alternative would have been to overpay for somebody because of what they did previously and maybe limiting what you could do to strengthen the club overall. Barcelona has found that because even with unlimited salary to spend, they have not been able to do everything effectively, and that's a huge problem. Ricky Ricardo says, also, Alphonso Davies committed a murder yesterday, and he did. Semedo had one of the worst matches at that level that I've ever seen. It wasn't just the Davies situation. He was horrendous, and a big part of why they got ripped up. I saw some elements from German reporting about it, and this was something that Hansi Flick, remember, an interim manager when he was brought in, Hansi Flick said, or it might have been people around him said that, everybody was worried about Messi and Alphonso Davies. Like, oh, this is a big test for Alphonso Davies. He's such a young guy. This is a really big test. Well, he knew he was going to have a free run at the right back because Messi's not going to be asked to defend him in the same way that others are. So he's got to deal defensively with Messi, and look, it was a lot easier because you played in their half the whole time. But he has a free run at Semedo. He's going to eat him up every time, and he did. So that's again, it's back to the overall strategy. As good as Lionel Messi is, and still is, and can still put a team on his back, and can still win a game almost single-handedly, almost being the key phrase. Because he can't do it every time, and he can't do it against teams at the level of Bayern, and he can't do it against teams that are that ruthless. It's just impossible at this point.
Mr. Fantastic with a question to the floor. He says, what's your thoughts on Davies, and is he a top 5 left back, left wing back in the world at the moment?
I mean, I don't have my board of left backs in the world. It's easy to say that. He's incredibly good, and there's just no way around that. I would have to really study it to draw it out before I'd feel comfortable saying it. He's in the conversation. There's no way around it. Now, the question would be, like you always see with an outside back, a wing back who is so good going forward, can they defend under pressure if you can put them under that pressure? And that's a question for Davies. That's a legitimate question. His defensive work has gotten much, much, much better. And Bayern protects him too. You have to understand what kind of weapons you have. I mean, go back to Barcelona and Dani Alves, and go to Real Madrid and Roberto Carlos. You have those guys who can get forward and are such a weapon. You want to use them going forward, and you know that you're going to sacrifice a little defensively, and people have to adjust to cover for that. Bayern does a great job to get the most out of him. Could he fit in every system? Maybe not because of the defensive side, but he's in the conversation. There's no way around it. I don't know where he ranks. I'd have to sit down and really go through it. But top 10, top 20, absolutely. Top 5, maybe, potentially. I think he'll get there because I think he'll continue to improve defensively. I mean, you got to remember he's young, and he hasn't been playing left back for all that long. So the defensive side is what you can learn over time, and he'll get there. He'll get better and better at it.
A couple of other topics on Twitter, but just another couple of numbers that popped out to me when it came to the match yesterday. First time since 1949, Barcelona had conceded 7 goals in a single game. First time since 1951, they lost a game by 6 goals. And the first time since 1946, they conceded 8 goals in a game. Also, the first time a team had scored 8 in a Champions League knockout game.
Yeah, the thing that struck me, and I believe it was Thomas Müller who said this after the match, because you had some players for Bayern who were on the field in that 7-1 Germany-Brazil World Cup semifinal. I believe it was Müller who said that this game yesterday was worse because they didn't feel like they were in as much control against Brazil as they were yesterday. I would probably agree with that. I mean, I have to go back and watch that 2014 game. It was so shocking that, I don't remember a ton of Brazilian control, but it felt like Germany maybe took their foot off the gas earlier than Bayern did. Yeah. And I mean, just the ultimate is Coutinho coming on against Barca and scoring 2 goals. I mean, that is just the kick to the face.
Yeah.
But that's what that game was. And that's probably what Barcelona needed, because now they cannot ignore it anymore. They just can't. They have to be as ruthless as Bayern was against them on the field. They have to be that with this roster. And PK opened the door, and you have to give him credit for saying that.
No doubt.
Because a lot of players who don't have that club mentality, that love for the badge, wouldn't be thinking of the club as a whole. They'd be thinking of themselves. And, everybody's time with Barcelona has to be questioned after that kind of a loss. Is time up? PK's like, hey, if it's up for me, do it. The club needs to do what it needs to do because this is not Barcelona. And that's what Barcelona has to get back to. I thought Nick Alifi had a really good idea on Twitter. Now, it's a little bit of a step beyond, but it's along the same lines of where I would go with it. I've advocated for Xavi since January, and they talked to him then, and we've talked about it recently, that he wasn't interested at that point. I think you have to go beg him. There's just no way around it at this point. He gets the feel, and you have to do what the club did when they brought Cruyff in as the manager. You have to do what the club did when they chose Guardiola over Jose Mourinho in 2008. You have to go get somebody who gets what the club has been and what it needs to do to get back there. But Nick Alifi has an idea, and we'll talk about this more on Soccer Over There on Monday. Erik ten Hag at Ajax, who had the great run last year in Champions League, go hire him as the manager. Bring in Frank de Boer in charge of the youth side of it in La Masia. And Frank has been there. He understands Barcelona. He's very good with youth. He did a great job at Ajax bringing young talent through. He won 4 league titles there. I think that's a great fit for Frank. And you go back to the Dutch roots because Barcelona has always had Dutch roots. In their modern times of being a world-class club, even before they truly got to that pinnacle, it was Rinus Michels, it was Johan Cruyff. First Michels as a manager, Cruyff as a player, then Cruyff as a manager. You've always had the Dutch talent coming through there. You've always had that Ajax influence. Okay, then keep rolling down that road. If you can't get Xavi, because he would be my number one, and I would literally be begging, because I think Xavi would understand the financial implications that the club is facing as well. He would probably be the one most willing to take less money to do the job that needs to be done. You'd have to protect him. I think it's a 5-year deal. You'd have to give him time. If you can't get that, if he says, you know what, even I'm not walking into this thing, you guys got to figure it out yourselves, then you go and you do what you got to do to get Ten Hag. I think that would be a really good plan B. Max Allegri is ludicrous as the idea. He's not a Barca guy anyway. His style is not Barcelona-esque. That's nuts. Pochettino, yeah, he fits it, but he doesn't understand the club. And if you go back to Tata Martino's year at Barcelona, that was a lot of the friction, is he wasn't a Barca guy. Barca's not just your run-of-the-mill club. You have to stop thinking of it that way. They're not Real Madrid in terms of just we spend whatever we want to spend and we're going to go get whoever we get and we don't have a DNA. Barca has a DNA. There's certain things you have to do at Barcelona. They're like an Ajax. I think they're like a Liverpool. They're like a Manchester United. Look at Manchester United when they got away from what they were of bringing young talent through and being, and before they brought Ole in, they felt like a team that was lost. And now they feel like they're starting to get back there. The rot didn't get as deep there. The rot is really deep at Barcelona.
Yeah.
And you've got to fix it. If you can't get Xavi, who would understand it and has been through it and would know the moves to get La Masia back up and running the way it needs to get, then go get Ten Hag. And, yeah, Frank is the youth development. I'm 100% with that. I think that's a great idea. But that's a plan B to me. Xavi's the plan A.
On Twitter, a variety of topics. Four-Card wants to know about last night. Tafka has a question about the twos. And Michael Ruiz
wants to know about last night. That is the most vague thing in the world. I mean, does he want to know what we had for dinner? Does he want to know what was on television? What?
Four-Card. I missed trivia. Who won? I'm still numb from the massacre. And he says, here's to hoping, his Barcelona thought, he says, here's to hoping all the board president, manager, and all the old useless players are getting fired.
Roberto Rojas came back in the final round to win trivia again. Ended up raising over $700 for soccer in the streets. The average donation of people who participated was over $40, which is
Nice.
awesome. That's very high in these kinds of things, and it's a credit to the people who took the time out to play. A lot of SDH listeners played. It was very fun. I think my questions were maybe sliding over to the difficult side of the scale. I got pretty medieval with my questions. It was fun, though. Some stuff that I thought I knew and I was wrong in doing the research. I had to go back and correct myself. A couple good ones on the Atlanta United side. So it was a lot of fun. But, yeah, I'm with Four Card, and I feel bad for Barcelona fans right now because, I think a lot of Barcelona fans have been asking for these things to change before you got to this point. Yeah. Now, there's just no way around it, and it's got to happen quickly, and you have less resources to do it effectively, so it's not going to be easy.
Busquets is 32, Messi, Suarez, Vidal, Piqué, all 33. That was the age thing that I had. So, and the other separate topic that is on Twitter is
you said three different people, and I asked you for one in more detail. What were the other two?
Michael Ruiz wants to know top 5 players in Concacaf. He's got 2,
Hold on.
And then he wanted to have
off the top of my head, and this is without going deep into the research. Davies, Pulisic are easy ones. Jonathan David from Canada is going to be in that mix, maybe. From Mexico,
he has Vela and Jimenez.
I wouldn't put Vela in it because I don't know if you're going to be able to count on him with the national team. I think that's a huge part of it. Jimenez I'm good with. So he's 3. I want to see what happens with Chucky Lozano at Napoli, but I think he should be in it. He might not play his way into it. It sounds like there's been some issues on the training pitch at Napoli, and he's not earning the respect of Gattuso. It's coming and going. That's got to change. David could be the other one. Other American contenders, Weston McKennie would be in that conversation. Yeah, it might be it. And then I'd have to do some research on the Central American and the Caribbean side, but I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that I'd put into that mix.
Yeah, Michael said Keylor Navas would be on his list as well.
Maybe. He might be 5, and I think that's going to change here somewhat soon. He's going to get passed, and I'll be curious to see who that next great CONCACAF goalkeeper is. I don't know who the next one is for Mexico that's going to be in the conversation. Could Zach Steffen be that? He could. We'll see what the next step is for Steffen. If he ends up getting into the mix at Manchester City and I think really developing his distribution, we could be having a very different conversation about Zach Steffen. But right now, the best goalkeeper in CONCACAF, I'd still go with Keylor Navas.
And Tafka's question about the twos.
Okay.
He says, we're just at about max roster capacity. What restrictions exist with contracts for Atlanta United 2 in order to make it an obligatory step between academy and first team? There can always be exceptions so as to sign a prodigy talent straight to the first team, but I'd imagine the limit for first team homegrowns is 8 or 9, most of the supplemental roster.
No, there's no limit. There's no limit to it at all. When the supplemental roster spots are full, they fill senior roster spots. But you want them on supplemental roster spots because you want senior roster spots open. But if you're a Dallas, if you're a team that's signing 10, 12, 15, you'd love to be in that situation. And when you're there, they're just in senior roster spots. So, no, there's no limit. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, he said, Tafka says the twos need to soon play a larger contractual role, not just as developmental plug-and-play tryout.
But they already are. Hold on. Now, this is the thing. They already are. Jackson Conway is on an Atlanta United 2 professional contract. They've said from jump with Atlanta United 2 that they don't look at Jackson Conway as a non-professional. Is he on an MLS deal right now? No. But he's treated as a professional just like George Bello is. There's no difference. So it's where he signed is different, and he can't play in MLS. But you've already done that with Conway. You've already done that with Alessandro Castro, and it didn't work out to the next point, but he's an academy signing that came through. Laurent Kessiedou was an academy player that came through and signed a USL deal, and he didn't progress for him to the next stage. From things that I've heard, Will Vent was offered a twos deal and passed on it, and he ended up going to Colorado and getting that because he hadn't earned an MLS deal. It is an in-between, but it's already happening. So you look at the next ones in the academy right now, there's not the premise is flawed, and it's not Tafka's fault. It's the premise is flawed that there's a limitation on the MLS side. There's not. You're signing guys when they're ready, and you've got more players coming through that are going to be ready. And I think you will see more players signed to the USL side, just like you'll see more players signed to the MLS side. But that's more of the development from the academy coming. It's not about structure. I mean, in a perfect world, you develop all of your players in-house. In a perfect world, in a vacuum, in a utopia. We know that's not possible because we know even the best clubs that develop talent, you might have a generation come through and you're missing a six. You're missing a left winger, and you got to go out into the market and get somebody. And that's okay. But the best clubs in the world want to develop all of their talent because you get what happened with Gerard Piqué. They understand the club. You get what happened with Tito Villalba at San Lorenzo, where he could have walked on a free, and he said, you know what? I'm not going to go to Boca because I don't want to play for Boca. I don't want to play for another Argentine club. I'm going to sign a new deal at San Lorenzo, even though I know that my time here is up. I'm going to do that because it will help the club in terms of a transfer fee. And that was in the media in Argentina before he came to Atlanta. You have to develop guys so they feel your club. So they're going to benefit it. This was a prime example with Efrain Morales, in my opinion, because you sign him, Manchester United was interested. I would assume that if they brought him in the way they did, that he might have been able to get a European passport. But you sign him because you don't want to lose him for nothing. You don't want the Weston McKennie situation and many others. It's happened multiple times to Dallas before they had that position. You can use the twos as a stopgap for some, but for that next level, you're going to have to use the MLS deal. And if that means you've got to use some senior roster spots on guys, most likely what happens is as players come in, they sign a homegrown deal, their next contract would take them to the senior roster. That's typical. But if you have a class that comes through, let's say you nail it, you've got the class of 92 situation that Manchester United did, you've got the La Masia generation that comes through like Barcelona did, and you sign 8 players in one swoop, yeah, you're just going to have to sign some to senior roster spots. That's just how it is. But there's no limitation on it. The twos will be used more as an in-between as well, but they're already being used that way. Now you're seeing more players come through, but a lot of them are in that 14, 15, 16-year-old range, which you've got to be careful because that age doesn't guarantee professional success. But you don't want them to get to 17 or 18 and not have them locked up to where then they could go to Europe if they have that opportunity for nothing. So it's a delicate balance, but I think Atlanta's getting it right overall. And, yeah, I do think you'll see more signings of youth players coming through on both sides of it, but they're not treated any differently. You know, the development pathway is the same for Jackson Conway as it is for George Bello right now.
The Airborne DJ has sent a homework assignment for later on. He's sent a link if the USA 11, if all eligible players had declared for the United States. And so he says it's a fun watch, and he wanted to know what our thoughts are, so he's given us a homework assignment.
Okay, I'll jump into that. We'll talk about it Monday.
The Colonel has also sent along a note. He said, Swansea said he was only a work permit away from bringing in Alphonso Davies into the championship in 2017.
I think it worked out for Alphonso Davies. No offense, Colonel, and any other Swansea fans out there who are still sad about that. I actually didn't. I probably heard that and I forgot it.
Yeah. We are officially caught up on Twitter, sir. What's going on in the Twitch pitch?
Burned on the Champions League said the results this week show the value of scouting and squad composition. Leipzig in the semifinals, Barcelona, Real, Juve out. shows that the Galacticos model is dead. Bayern went younger 2 years ago, and they did. Spending big money on older, overpriced players that don't fit the respective club philosophies will lead to disaster. Manchester City will fight you on that, but I think they straddle a little bit of the Galacticos model and the other side. So the scouting, the squad composition. I do think Manchester City's kind of a little of both. PSG is absolutely a Galacticos model, and they're still around, and you can't discount them just yet. So I'm going to hold off on that one, Burned. And Ragamuffin's asking about City, and I think they're in between the two because they have a philosophy. They don't just go sign guys for nothing.
They bring up a Phil Foden as an example for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that doesn't change it. I'm saying that Real Madrid's going to go sign the best players they can sign, period. And they're going to make it work. And Zidane's a great manager for that because he's not married to one style of play. He will just find the best setup for the players that are playing the best, and he'll do it. It's almost like a national team kind of manager. Nothing wrong with that. It's working. They've done really well. PSG's going to go sign whoever they can sign, period. Manchester City they brought in Pep to build a philosophy. I think he's done that. And they do have the money to go buy players who fit into that philosophy. They're not going to add a player who is the flavor of the month but doesn't fit. So they're a little unique in that. PSG should have lost, absolutely, but they didn't. They didn't, so we'll see. I'm with you in general, and I'm not against anything, obviously. I think if you've listened to me, and Bernd and I have talked football many times on this kind of stuff, I'm not against what Bernd is saying in terms of scouting and squad composition. I just don't think it's that simple to say that the Galacticos model is dead. I think these clubs who have went down that road maybe are dead. Real Madrid, some of it's bad luck with the way things worked out in the Champions League. I'm not writing Real Madrid off. Barcelona traded in the scouting, the squad composition, building the team the right way, that DNA. They traded that in for a Galacticos model, and it's absolutely killed them. There's no question about that. They've got to get back to their roots. Real Madrid's always been that. They're always going to have their ups and downs. It's all about the fit and the chemistry and who they go get. But that's who they've always been, so I don't see that really changing. City is kind of the interesting one, and Liverpool's the same way. I mean, Liverpool can go out and spend whatever they want to spend, but they're not going to go sign guys just to sign guys. They're going to bring guys in that fit. So I would say that's the step that the Galacticos teams have to take, is they have to have an identifiable DNA, or you run the risk of not having it work like it did for Barcelona. Real Madrid has the right manager in place to make it work as best as it can. Because if, Carlo Ancelotti is that kind of manager too, who, if you've got the team that the best 11 right now should be in a 4-4-2, fine, I'll play in a 4-4-2. If the best 11 currently on form should be in a 4-3-3, fine, play in a 4-3-3. It's not strict. So, but for a Liverpool, for a Manchester City, that's not going to work. So it's an interesting balance. It's a really interesting balance, and I think what it's showing to me, maybe more than just that, is this idea that we saw it with Barca, the whole thing, and we all fell into it after the Napoli match, is Messi can still fix everything. He can't. It's just impossible. If the team's broken, he can only do so much. I mean, then I saw the flip side as people were blaming Messi for yesterday.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that too.
And it's no, it's not that simple. And Burns with me on City. They're not a Galacticos kind of thing. They will spend big money on players who fit. You have to have a philosophy, I think, to get the best out of it. Or you have to be the Real Madrid who hits on the right signings, has the right person to lead it, and is flexible enough to treat it like a national team, and also has the luck that they need to have in the Champions League. They won 3 in a row, so I'm not ready to say that you can't win that way. But the Champions League's also down to a lot of luck overall. I think the Spanish football destruction that a lot are going down maybe is a little overblown. I don't think Real Madrid's in any kind of massive decline. Honestly, I don't think Atleti is either. I think Atleti just has to make the decision on, has Simeone run his course there?
Yeah.
Has he gotten everything he can get out of that group? If he has, okay, move on. But they're always going to be number 3, although right now they might be number 2 by default because Barcelona might fall back.
Yeah.
And there's nobody else who's going to be in that conversation in the same way. Everybody else is always going to be a step beyond those 3. It's about the same as it was, except Barcelona has fallen from 1A, 1B to 3 at a minimum, and probably there. I mean, I think they're still going to be able to find enough to be 3rd. But it's more Barca than anything, and that's not all the Spanish football being broken. I think what you're seeing, though, is the game is changing to more of a collective away from just a superstar or just a pair of superstars. The collective can be more powerful now, and that's down to some of the new coaches coming through, some of the new progressive, game models. A Nagelsmann taking what was a model for underdogs in terms of the overall press and making it something that favorites could play into. Jurgen Klopp's done that as well. Managers progressing to make the collective more important. That's the step for me, and I want to see now, how does a Zidane, how does a Real Madrid, how does a Tuchel, how does a PSG, how do they respond to that? How does Juventus respond? It looks like Juventus is going on the other side of it. They're going to go, I'm assuming, because this is what we're hearing, we'll see, if Juventus starts to go to a building model and building a new collective and building through youth, we'll find out. The Pirlo thing's still fascinating to me. I'll be really paying attention to Juve, but I don't think the Galacticos model's dead. I want to see how it responds to this, though, because now the collective is showing that it can be stronger.
Mr. Fantastic's back in, and he wants to know, what are your thoughts on the new format with Champions League having knockout rounds instead of a 2-leg system, and should it stick around permanently?
I like it. I love 2 legs, though. I love the strategy of it. So I don't think it will stick around. Champions League is all about making money, and 2 games gives you more money than 1. So I don't think it will stick around. I do wonder if it sticks around for the Europa League. And I've seen some speculation on that. That would make more sense to me because it would give the Europa League a bit of a hook. It would give the Europa League something special that separates it rather than just being the second-tier competition, rather than just being the NIT of European club football. Make it single elimination from the quarterfinals on. I'd be cool with that. Champions League, I think you want the 2 games as much as you can. You just want the money.
Yeah, you want the large dollars to continue to circulate through all of the added legs and things like that.
Adam is tired of the Barcelona and Spanish football talk, and it did dominate it today. But a game like that, Adam, it's kind of reverberates through football. And I think to wrap up, because this is a power hour and we got a couple minutes before we go, I think MLS teams do have to pay attention to these kinds of things because there is overlap. You look at players at Barcelona who could be available. I mean, is Lionel Messi going to come to MLS? I think you're going to find somebody who's going to pay stupid money for him for at least another year in Europe. But where does he want to go? That's the massive question. I mean, does he want to go reunite with Pep? They didn't have the closest of relationships, but Manchester City would find a way to welcome him in with open arms. Mm-hmm. He can call wherever he wants to go. Does he want to go to Italy? I think stylistically it would make a lot of sense. But who could pay him the money he's accustomed to? Or does that matter to him at this point? Or does he just want to chuck it and go somewhere completely different, like MLS, like back to Argentina, although I don't know how that would work right now. No, he's not. Going home implies that he's done, and he's not done. But I don't know what he wants to do. So that's on the line. A Busquets, a Piqué. Luis Suarez, who's been linked to Inter Miami, I would say that rumor becomes far more possible with what happened. Because you don't need him right now at Barcelona. He had a good match yesterday, had a good goal, but what do you really need him for if you're Barcelona? You've got to change everything up. So Luis Suarez, I think he'll end up in Miami, if not now, in the following window in January. I really think that'll happen. But I think you have to look at what happened to Barcelona and look at it in terms of MLS clubs. And Shiva, with the correlation between the two, I think is dead on. You have to, in MLS especially because of the cap, you have to recycle your talents quickly. Mm-hmm. You can't allow your team to rot.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the resources to fix it. Barcelona should have fixed it, and they didn't. They had the resources to. Now they might not. MLS, if you allow it to rot, you could be setting your team back for 2, 3, 4 years before you can rebuild because of those limitations of the cap. You have to look at what happened with Barca and not allow it to happen to you if you're in MLS.
No, I'm absolutely right there with you 100%. What else do you want to tackle before we go?
Well, we don't have time to talk about anything else because we got to go. Because every time we do that, we end up getting into something, and you've got to be on Canadian digital TV.
Yes, I do.
So
Zingo TV, channel 250, and we have our discussions. It'll be about this, and it'll probably be about things very similar to it as well.
We won't be talking MLS tonight. We'll be talking USL Championship. Watch along Atlanta United 2 and Charleston Battery. 7:30 kick, is that correct?
Efforting quickly, but I want to say that is correct.
I don't know if you can effort quickly.
Before we go, I want to double-check that. So we get the 7:30. It's either a 7 or a 7:30. I feel like we should play some music or something while I'm chasing these.
No, I refuse.
You refuse to play music?
Yes, I refuse.
Schedule's loading.
Jeez.
Once again.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Well, I'm a little older than that, but that's okay. 8 o'clock start.
Okay. I'm glad we checked. I'm glad it was worth all the time. So we will be on at 7:45 on Twitch. We'll talk about the lineups. We'll talk through the game as it happens. So join us 7:45, twitch.tv/soccer down here, Atlanta United 2 and Charleston. Tomorrow you got Nashville and Dallas, and then MLS gets rolling again kind of middle of next week. Thanks for hanging out today. We appreciate it. It was a madness kind of afternoon yesterday, and it really shook the soccer world to the core. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if Barcelona has a manager by the time we do the show tonight. I think they will. I think they'll have to wait till that board meeting on Monday. So crazy things are afoot, but we'll have some USL Championship to talk about tonight. Until then, much plati, y'all.
Much plati, y'all.